Part 1. A Team of Our Own. George Shinn, a prominent local entrepreneur with a dream to bring pro basketball to North Carolina. He took his dream to the Big Apple and returned to Charlotte a hero. A Team of Our Own, the 24th NBA franchise. Thank you, George Shinn, you wholesome gentleman. The original name for the team would be the Charlotte Spirit, but a name the team contest among fans provided Hornets, which was better. The name was a callback to British General Cornholio, who mused that Charlotte was, quote, a hornet's nest of rebellion, and also uttered, quote, damned may they be henceforth in the pursuit of sport. The Charlotte Coliseum, the future home of the new Charlotte team, would be the largest basketball-specific arena ever built, so there was a concern that there would be a lot of empty seats. But the Charlotte Hornets led the NBA in attendance, selling out 364 consecutive games. Fans were genuinely thrilled about having a professional team. Even their uniforms, purple and teal with pinstripes, would take the fashion world by storm. Metropolitan homosexuals of the time were 85% more likely to root for the Hornets based on aesthetics alone. What came in the years to follow was a big, confounding contradiction. How was the team playing in their inaugural season? Ugh, terrible. 20 wins, 62 losses, putting them at the very bottom of the Eastern Conference. In the very first game, the Cleveland Cavaliers cleaned their clocks. The Hornets got completely pounded.
The fact that we lost the first game by 40 points and nobody left their seat, and they stood and cheered as we left the court that day.
The Charlotte fans give their team a standing O, and that's great.
The leading scorer was Kelly Tripucka, a TWG who averaged 23 points a game. He was taken in the expansion draft, along with Del Curry and Kurt Rambis. With the 8th pick in the 1988 NBA draft, the Hornets selected
Rex Chapman of Kentucky.
The 50th pick in that draft was this guy, by the way. It was clear that Charlotte was over the moon about its own NBA team. North Carolina was a hotbed of basketball, and UNC notoriously produced the greatest. His team would lose to the fledgling Hornets right before Christmas in 1988 at the buzzer during Jordan's first return to North Carolina as a professional player. And that may have meant nothing to him, but that may have been the moment he decided to dedicate his life to making Hornets fans hopeless and disappointed. The second Hornets season was marginally worse. It ended 19-63, and they replaced their coach in the middle of the season. Okay, not great.
Obviously, you got to think positively.
It stung some of the more passionate supporters. In 1991, a superfan camped out on a Longhorn Steakhouse billboard on Independence Boulevard, coming down only to defecate until the Hornets won a game. He was up there for 35 days and gained 20 pounds. Must have been the catered steak lunches from Longhorn.
Charlotte Hornets are the greatest. Number one is coming up. You gotta believe.
Lucky for him and all the other Hornets fans, the lottery balls fell favorably in 1991 when the Hornets were awarded the coveted first overall pick. They drafted a power forward named
Grandmama! Let's go.
Larry Johnson went on to win
1992 Rookie of the Year.
The Hornets nailed the pick. Hard to mess up the first, but it does happen. In 1992, with the second pick, the Hornets again drafted a post player, Alonzo Mourning, and he would have won Rookie of the Year if not for this man, who was taken first overall. By the team's 5th season, they had clinched a playoff berth for the first time. They went on to beat the Boston Celtics in the first round, 3-1, on a now legendary Alonzo Mourning buzzer beater. Wow, they actually made it through a playoff series. This was the beginning of a turning point for the Hornets. Larry Johnson and Alonzo Mourning were trouble in the paint, and combined with the speed and passing of Muggsy Bogues and the sharpshooting Del Curry, the popularity of the team was at an all-time high. They made the playoffs yet again in 1995, but behind the scenes, the Mourning-Johnson pair got into it often at practice and disliked one another.
I throw elbow.
This time, they were swept by the notorious Chicago Bulls and their superstar, formerly of the Birmingham Barons and Scottsdale Scorpions minor league baseball teams. Who else? In the years to follow, things continued on in good spirit. Attendance was high, the team was competitive, and management was competent. The Hornets franchise was a resounding success. Businessman and beloved hometown hero George Shinn from humble Kannapolis origins, had worked his way up to NBA owner, and then he flew too close to the sun, as they say. He had a Hornets cheerleader girlfriend, and also a wife. More on that later. In the off-season of 1996, I was kicking back on my beanbag chair, playing Pokemon Red on my Game Boy Color. Grandmama was shipped off to the Knicks, and on the day of the draft, the Hornets used their 13th overall pick to take a guy named Kobe Bryant. Longtime Hornets beat reporter Rick Bonnell summed up the situation like this. The Lakers GM at the time, Jerry West, really wanted Bryant, but he needed cap space if he was also going to sign Shaquille O'Neal. That would have to involve moving their center, Vlade Divac, and the Hornets very recently needed a center after losing LJ, so they were an easy pawn in the Lakers' game. The deal was, if Bryant fell to the Hornets at 13th, the Lakers would deal Divac for him, effectively giving the Lakers enough space to sign O'Neal, and that was the beginning of another Laker dynasty under coach Phil Jackson, facilitated in part by the Charlotte Hornets.
He's such a nice boy.
Kobe's account of the situation was different, however. Even though his own agent wouldn't let him work out with the Hornets before the draft, Bryant claimed, even as late as 2014, in a tweet, that, quote, "The Hornets told me right after they drafted me that they had no use for me and were going to trade me. #Tanku, #Lakers. Regardless of the draft, the Hornets' 96-97 season would be their best ever, finishing with a 54-28 record, landing them back in the playoffs yet again. The season after that, a 51-31 record. This team was no joke. They were consistent and had a good reputation around the league. The Hornets enjoyed a loaded roster that included David Wesley, Bobby Phills, Glenn Rice, Anthony Mason, and Vlade Divac, who wasn't quite as explosive as Alonzo or LJ were, but a solid addition. He was no Kobe Bryant. The team made it to the second round of the playoffs, but any championship hopes would be shuffled quickly away by the Bulls and this man, crushing our dreams long before he became an owner. There was also drama between a player and a coach.
Got into it with Anthony Mason after Game 3, actually during Game 3. Mason played only 4 minutes in the fourth quarter, and as he came off the floor after being yanked, he said something to Cowens, and Cowens had a rather colorful suggestion for Mr. Mason.
When the 90s ended, so too did my childhood. Most of the players that we associate with the early glory days of the team were traded. Glenn Rice was sent to the Lakers. David Cowens quit as head coach halfway through the season and was replaced by Paul Silas. In his glory years, he could be found coaching the Bobcats from a stool during timeouts because nobody could stand the Bobcats, not even the head coach. Despite all the flux going into the new millennium, the Hornets were still making the playoffs. They twice reached the conference semifinals. They drafted one of the all-time Hornets greats, Baron Davis, in 1999, and he enjoyed a celebrated tenure in Charlotte. So, what happened next? In 2002, the NBA approved the deal that moved the team to New Orleans for the following season. They're gone? The league-topping popularity of the team had taken a nosedive. Attendance in a once state-of-the-art arena was declining year on year, as was the condition of the Coliseum itself, which lacked an adequate number of luxury box suites. George Shinn, the working-class janitor turned team owner, he burst into flames, and as he flailed and lambasted through the organization, the fire spread fast. Flew too close to the sun. It was alleged Shinn sexually assaulted a young woman in his TKK home.
So it was quite a night, but I must say in all honesty I was quite nervous.
In 1999, a grand jury refused to indict him on criminal charges. So, case closed? Well, in addition to this scandal, he soon faced a sexual harassment lawsuit from a former Hornets cheerleader who said he coerced her into having sex. The city was mad. So was Shinn's wife.
And my house is shaking, and it's shaking, and it keeps shaking, and it's shaking, and it shakes for over a minute to 2 minutes. It shook. Wherever you are, Mr. Helicopter Pilot, come out of your hole. And you too, George Shinn, because you're in that helicopter, and you're nothing but a chameleon, lemon-headed, coward, terrorist pussy. And I'm after you, buddy. You're going to pay for it.
Sir.
Good night.
Thank you very much, sir.
It's pretty lurid stuff for the owner of a team to be sticking it to a cheerleader. It's okay if Byron Mullins does it because look at him, but married owners need to behave themselves, and the fans thought so too. This was the Bible Belt, and Charlotte was known as the city of churches. Shinn went from the city hero to a virtual outcast, and and the bad publicity piss stream had splashed onto the Hornets' name. Fans were upset and started boycotting games. In fact, the once perpetually full arena that broke attendance records had fewer than 1,000 fans turn out on a snowy night in 2002 to watch the team beat the Golden State Warriors, and disdain for ownership was the reason for lack of support. Eventually, the fans were so fed up with the owner that tickets couldn't even be given away for free. That lack of luxury seating was supposedly costing Shin and co-owner Ray Wooldridge nearly $1 million every month in losses, so naturally, their focus shifted to building a new arena. Charlotte voters rejected the new arena proposal in droves, which led Shin and his partner Wooldridge to move the team to New Orleans. Oh, and then the city built a new arena anyway, with some help from the banks. There was another reason for falling attendance. Charlotte had recently received its very own NFL franchise, and the Hornets were no longer the only team in town. In the end, the loss of the Charlotte NBA team was a product of an outdated arena, a millionaire owner's fall from grace, and a lack of luxury box suites. Continued in Part 2.